All right. Well, this is so funny. That's the first time I did that. I said I was going to take my guests out of the screen so that I could introduce them, but then I accidentally actually took myself out of the screen. I love it. There's no guest today. It's the invisible show. So, welcome to Intercultural Spark, where you actually never know what will happen on screen. I could not be more excited today. I know I say that every week, and then I follow it by saying, but this time I really mean it. Um, because today my guests are, I have Judge Marylin Atkins and her daughters, Elizabeth Ann and Catherine Marie. And first of all, I just love it because they are two sisters and I am one of three sisters. So much fun to have sisters in the house. But what's really, it's just an interesting conversation. They are a multi-generational, multiracial family, and we're going to look at how your appearance versus your identity, how those differ when society projects things onto you. So looking for a really fun and exciting conversation. It's all something very important to each of them. They have published multitudes of books of their own stories and of other heroes. And so let's hear all about it and talk about what their life is like. So welcome to Intercultural Spark. Hi, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Deanna.
How are you all? I did this before. I always feel funny I feel like the top left is like the star location. So we're going to switch us around. And then between the sisters, I can move you back and forth halfway through. Well, this is great. Thank you so much for being here. And just a reminder as we get started, thank you so much for everyone that's viewing live. And reminder that when you're here with us live, you can ask questions in the comments and we can share those on screen as well. So please do share your questions as well. You all are, it's funny, it's where to even start. The question itself is even weird because we're talking about racial identity and how that kind of your own identities and relates to what people project onto you. I think I want to go through the lens of your books because you're all amazing, accomplished women, writers, etc. So why don't we start with the books? Because something about your experience, there you go, was so compelling that look at you, the three of you with your with your books. I know that Elizabeth and Catherine, you've been writing for a long time, but you urged your mom to write her autobiography a few years ago. Camille, why don't we start with you in terms of that experience of writing the book? And you had said you're so matter of fact that this is just my story, but how did it feel to write that story and to share your experience with your daughters?
Well, I was, like you say, I was urged on by my daughters to write my story. I didn't think I had anything that was book worthy, but, I got over my angst about sharing things in my life that were not so pleasant. You don't know if you want to tell the world. You have to tell the good and the bad if you're going to be genuine. So I wasn't sure for a number of years if I wanted to share things. I had a tumultuous relationship with my mother. I had things happen. So I got over that and I went ahead and I put not pen to paper. Well, I started pen to paper and Catherine said, no, you're never going to finish. Let me show you how to do it on the laptop. And so they set me up and I just began to do it in chronological order from my birth and what I knew before my birth until I retired from the court. And it, Deanna, as I wrote, the memories came flooding back, not only in chronological order, but in great detail. So it was an easy process.
Well, and even your birth, when you talked about, talk a little bit about that, because you're sort of multi-generational, multiracial.
Yeah, my mother was Italian and my father was African American. I never knew who they were, but because I was biracial, my Italian great grandmother said, "No, you can't come home." So I was placed in foster care. and I was adopted by an African American couple. So my background and my upbringing is all African American. I grew up in a Black household surrounded by Black relatives. We had white friends. My mother was a music teacher, and that was intercultural. So I knew a whole lot of people. But no, I did not have any kind of Italian influence.
So then, and I'm just going to use like sort of frank racial terms because that's what we're talking about. So here you are, you're multiracial, but you're raised culturally identifying as Black, and now you have 2 daughters who appear completely white. So how did that happen?
Their father, when I was 19, I married their father, who was a former Roman Catholic priest. He was Caucasian. He was French and English, 25 years older than me. And he left the priesthood. We got married, and we had Elizabeth and Catherine. So that's how that happened.
Now, Elizabeth, you're laughing. What is laughing to you? What is making you laugh about that?
Well, I love to put it into context because my parents were renegades. My father left the priesthood before it was commonly done, and they sparked a scandal of race and religion. The bishop told them we're going to hell. Families were not happy for a while. Thankfully, healing occurred. And it was an era, it was 1966 when they married. And Loving versus Virginia, the U.S. Supreme Court decision that legalized interracial marriage, where it was still illegal in 16 states when they married, they defied a lot of conventions of the time. So I think the context of courage and their bravery in the name of love and wanting to be together for a peaceful, happy life together that they did not have in their childhood is really something to celebrate. And then Catherine and I are symbols of that. And we were just innately have this mission to celebrate diversity and inclusion. And our company evolved for us to first write our own stories into American literature because we did not see anybody who looked like us in books or in our classrooms. And so we wrote ourselves into, and then we attracted clients and published 28 books with similar against the odds success stories like Our Mothers, which we published, who celebrate diversity and inclusion and serve as examples that you can triumph, as the title of her book suggests. You can triumph.
You know, I thought the Veronica series was interesting. Now I'll show my Veronica series because, and I'm only laughing because of how much I actually love young adult fiction, because it's like it's so great to read. It's so easy to read. But what I thought, Catherine, is so the character is still like the angsty, high school or junior high school girl who now is multiracial. It sounds a little bit autobiographical, but Catherine, how did you form that character, and how did that feel to your own experience of growing up as a teenager?
Yeah, so I had no sense of race until it was pointed out to me, but I just knew that we had a loving family, and I didn't think anything that I was different, and so when I was 10 years old, a white boy in 5th grade said to me, "Catherine, I heard your mom's Black." And I was like, "What?" Now I think, why was that a relevant thing? Why was this a relevant question? And so I just remember thinking, what does this mean? Like, the outside world has this perception. So like the doors of being aware of race opened up, and you can imagine that Elizabeth and I are in situations where people just assume we're white and things are said. We're like the fly on the wall. We've heard things. So what I did with the Veronica series is I created a character who looked like me, had the same family dynamic, the bossy older sister. Elizabeth.
Wait, Elizabeth, we have to pause and do like family counseling. Elizabeth, how do you feel about that? She's like, all right, good, go ahead.
So it was more that the Veronica character is the pesky little sister, which is who I was. But I created her, and I created fictional events in her life. And I created this girl who could handle as she processed what this experience was. Whereas I, in my own experience, I didn't have any clue. I didn't know what I was doing. But looking back, I thought, well, what if I had been like this and I could have said this? And the reason I created the series, so the first book is about Veronica's friends and the outside world coming to her and noticing this difference and how she processes that as her identity forms. The second book is about boys. There's a white boy who likes her, and his—
Is that one? This one, I hear your mom is black.
Yeah,
is that
that's
this one?
Friends. Yeah. And then
Actually, Catherine, one thing that I thought was interesting about this, and this must have happened in real life, is that when that experience happens where someone says, oh, I heard your mom is black, that at your school, people who were black or people who were white started expecting you to behave a different way. How did that feel to you? And actually, I'm curious with Marylin too, your mom, how she helped you through that.
In reality, I really didn't want— I felt like there was some accusation in it, and I didn't want to hurt my mother. So I never shared with my parents what was happening, because they were just full of love. And I thought that this external that I was getting was wrong, and there was something wrong with it. And I didn't want to in any way hurt my parents. So I didn't share that with them. So
now I'm curious, would that have been hurtful? I guess if she had shared with you, Marylin.
Oh, I'd have been there.
Oh, that's so funny. Actually, so if I do recommend that everyone read the book, I guarantee you, when Marylin says I would have been there, like she would have been there. But what's funny though is, just as a mom, so I have a son who's just a little bit younger, I think, Elizabeth, than your son. And even as my son gets older, I still joke when someone's mean to him. I'll be like, oh, do you want me to go beat up their mom? I'm like still all over. There is a point though where you kind of can't do that anymore, and your kids need to navigate that on their own. So were there ever any things that you felt you needed to learn to navigate this space? I guess that's really for either of you, Elizabeth or Catherine. Marylin? Yeah.
Yeah, let me jump in. From the beginning, Tom and I taught our children that, listen, everybody is not going to be happy that you're sharing space on this planet. Everybody's not going to be happy that you're here. You look one way, and we understood, and we explained to them, you're going to have to navigate your own path. And that's what they did, with some heartache, with some tears, but they had to do it themselves. And the thing that Tom and I could only do was to give them the love and support. There was only, and they're right, Catherine is right. She didn't tell me, but I did find out that there was a white boy that liked Elizabeth. And then when he came over a few times, and when he found out that I'm black, my mom said, I can't see you anymore. Well, I found out about that, and I really wanted to say something, and my kids calmed me down, and I didn't. We're talking about the 1980s, and in Okemos, Michigan, which is all white.
But part of the reason I wrote the Veronica book, I wrote it obviously as an adult, and I incorporated the knowledge and wisdom, and I gave the mom, like I put Veronica in situations where the mom character, the black mom character, tells her these things. Like there's a scene where they're bra shopping, and in the book, this is fiction, the cashier assumes that the mom is the babysitter. And then that sparks a conversation. I wrote these books for biracial girls who look like me to have a guide and an ally, and to see that they can get through this, and to figure out, in answer to your question, the biggest thing is knowing when to speak up, knowing when and what to say, and knowing how to be true and to stand firm. Because a lot of times I'm really enraged by what I hear, but I really want to speak up. And so that's like my quest in life, is determining when to speak up, how to be true, how to be firm, and not get in trouble. Not get in trouble as in physical trouble. I was in a situation, I spent a summer on Cape Cod, and I was really scared of the people by what they were saying.
You know, Elizabeth, you share a story about when you went to vote, like that thing in your head where you have to stop for a minute. Is this racial or is this not racial? Can you share that story?
So yes, I share all of the stories, experiences that they just described. But so what it does is we walk through the world feeling a certain way and looking through a lens of racial consciousness, but being perceived as white, and therefore understanding things from multiple levels. And it gives me sort of this bird's eye view, and Catherine as well, into what's really going on. But sometimes it's just bizarre. So this is one of my favorite stories. I moved from one community to another. I was living with Catherine. I registered to vote. It was the re-election of Barack Obama for president. I was very excited to vote. It was the primary. We go to the polling site. We're the only Black people in the room.
Yeah.
Lots of people, right? So nobody knows, basically. And we get up to the voting, the station, and the gentleman behind the computer is like, not in the system, you can't vote. And I'm like, I registered, here's my license, this is my address, I'm voting. He's like, no, you can't vote. And I was enraged because there were all these stories about voter suppression in the South and people trying, to block Black people from voting. And I wanted to shout, you just don't want me to vote because I'm Black. And then I realized,
you even giggle at it.
He thinks I'm white. I'm standing here in my flowered dress. It's just, I look like a suburban mom, and anyway, those are, he had no idea that I was Black, and I had this strong Black consciousness under the blonde hair and white skin. And I just was calm, and I was able to vote next time. But it was, so I see this perspective in it that activates me to want to cultivate human harmony, social justice on every level. And Catherine and I do that through the written and spoken word.
I wonder, and I will go back to, because you have so many books. I want to talk about those. Couple things. First of all, Stephanie and Laurel, thank you for stopping by and saying hello. And for everyone who's watching live, please feel free to say hello. We don't know you're here unless you say hi. You don't get points just for being here. You have to say hello. And also, we welcome your questions. So this is probably a multi-part question. I still remember it was Eddie Murphy did a Saturday Night Live piece where this was probably back in the 80s, but he dresses up as a white man and gets on the bus, and the part was, as soon as the last Black person got off the bus, they started serving champagne and everyone was dancing. A band came out, and this was his imagination of what happens among white people when there's no Black people around. So
I remember that. Hilarious.
Do you remember that? It was really hilarious. After the show, I'll actually put it in the comments if people want to watch it. So I am curious, though, because there's got to be times, as you've already said, Catherine, you even said you kind of modulate or decide, when do I share which identity? But what do you see in terms of, oh my God, I'm just going to have to own up to being white and my own thing. I know for a fact that, the whole thing where someone, if they say, which salesperson helped you? And a white person would be like, it was the Black one, they'll whisper Black, people. So I think that white people may speak differently when there's people of color in the room, or I've seen that has happened. How do you navigate that at all? Because you must see that and live it.
So Catherine said it earlier that you first have to assess, if I say something, am I in danger? So I've had that experience, and I don't say anything because I don't want to get hurt or worse. But then there's other situations where I was in an event, and this woman, she thought I was white, and she used the N-word just in casual conversation. I said, it is never acceptable to use that word, period. And so I'm speaking to her from, she thinks I'm a white person saying it to her, and there's all kinds of dynamics that are discussed about who's the messenger. I just said it firmly and calmly, period. But then there are times when I'm so pleasantly surprised. I was in a meeting recently and the gentleman asked who was leading the meeting, he's like, does anybody have any inspirational quotes? And it was all white. And one lady said, yes, I have one. It was Rosa Parks. Another man spoke up and did a Dr. King quote. And it was beautiful because they thought I was white and they're celebrating Black people's wisdom and inspiration. One other thing, I was on an airplane once and there was this man who owned a big company sitting next to me. And he started talking about the Black and Latino workers. And I thought, uh-oh, here we go. And he was praising their industriousness and work ethic. And it was amazing. So it's not all negative.
Well, I feel like you guys call your mom Cap. Maybe one of you can say why. It's not even mom, it's the captain, the Cap. And I kind of feel like just the way that, Marylin, you live your life so confident. And so, in the book, you'll be like, and I had my plan. And then several times in the book, she'll go back. And then my plan became reality just as I planned it. Like that whole approach to life feels like really good advice for your girls.
Yes, it is. You have to have a plan and then you have to work the plan. But my original plan was always to be able to support my children and their pay for their college education. Like I said, I'm 19 and my husband's 45. And when they hit college age, it was going to be time for him to retire. And in 1971, I look at them and I look at him with his white hair and I said, oh my goodness, I got to get back to school and get myself in a profession where the money's going to keep going up and up and up. So I knew I was going to be responsible. So I started a plan right then and there. I didn't deviate from it. I did everything that I was supposed to do. And I go from, I end up being the chief judge of one of the largest district courts in the country. But also, Deanna, my message in my book is the fact that I went from probate court, from
being a magistrate.
Foster care.
From an infant being foster care. From foster care to being the chief judge of one of the largest courts in the country. And I tell people when I speak, listen, if I could overcome everything that I had to go through, you can too, and make a success of your life.
I actually love that subconsciously you literally just forgot the word foster care. You've come so far, right?
But my message to my daughters is always be strong, be sure of yourself, have confidence in yourself. Don't let anybody take you off your road that you have planned for yourself.
I think that obviously you guys both live it. I am curious because, as you said, this was in the 60s, originally before the Loving case. Now it's 2021. I'm curious, Elizabeth, like you have a son who's in his early 20s. Like, how do you think it's different? And we're also in a society now where people are, we've had a Black president. Some people even call it post-racial, which we know is obviously not a thing. But how have things changed, or have they not changed?
As long as mothers of Black sons have to wake up in the morning and pray for the safety of their sons in this world, yes, we've made tremendous progress, but my constant prayer is for mothers of Black sons in this world that social justice and equality can truly be achieved, because it's until we achieve that, we're not there yet.
It's almost like quiet for a minute just to really respect and honor that, because it's true. And I can see the real for all of you, just that real sentiment. So we feel that there's been change, and yet you're right. If people aren't safe, then change is not where it needs to be.
It's my pain. When I say this, my pain is not just for me. It's for every mother out there whose son is out driving or walking or going to school or trying to live his life. And this applies to all people, but especially my prayers daily are for mothers of Black sons and for all people to be safe. And so all the work that we do incrementally together can help. And all the social justice activism right now is beautiful and amazing. We just need to maintain it, continue it until we reach that, quote, promised land.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put this question up. Actually, I'm so sorry. I keep covering. I'm switching the sisters so that Catherine you guys don't hang up at the end and go like, how come she always put the questions over me? So now I'm switching you for a minute to ask this question, because this actually relates to, Elizabeth, what you were just talking about. So this is from Laurel. I'm curious about how you both channel your anger over overt racism. Is writing your primary outlet? And can you share an example of where you were comfortable confronting someone's ignorance? And that actually probably applies not only to the two of you, but to Marylin as well. Who wants to go first?
So I just want to share a story because I had to write books in order to create that strong girl that I wish I had been. But in my mother's story, when she was 10 years old, a little 10-year-old boy called her the N-word, and she beat the crap out of him and went home and told her parents she wanted to change schools and because she was going to a primarily white school. And she said, I want to go to the school where there are Black kids and Hispanic kids. So I hold that as my barometer of what I'm trying to achieve, but I don't want to beat up anybody.
Sure. Well, actually, and MK says that warrior woman spirit in Judge Atkins is reflected so beautifully in her two brilliant daughters. So thank you, MK, and you can see that. Well, but it feels like, there's so much here, because when we look at how racism changes over time, also how we enact it in society changes it. So for example, Marylin, let's say beating up the kid, then saying, okay, I'm switching schools. Like now, there's such the emphasis on use your words, so that how we can manifest things changes. And also just in the way, Elizabeth, when you were talking about that sense of mothers and protecting our kids, that feels more, I think that's always been a fear. It feels more front and center, I think, because we're seeing so many media images that hit that home. I always think of Trayvon Martin, like that could have been anyone's kid. You got Skittles and you're talking to your girlfriend. So do you realize that? Oh, I was just wondering what changes in some of the day-to-day dynamics.
What changes is that I'm a deeply spiritual person. My book, God's Answer is No, is all about how I'm deeply prayerful and I cast prayers for the world. I lead meditation for people across America. So I truly, truly, truly believe in the divine power to help us heal and make progress and make change. But obviously the legal system and getting rid of institutional racism is a tangible 3D thing. So we all have to play our part, but it's, we can sing "We Are the World" all day long, and that's wonderful. But the bottom line is we all have to continue to do our part to make change. And so how to deal with the overt racism is it's infuriating, but you have to find a source of comfort, which is for us writing and for me prayer and meditation and doing positives, projecting positivity and helping people, being the light that casts out the shadows.
Well, let's talk about that, because being the light to cast out the schedules or the shadows. Thank you, by the way, because I was a guest on your show, which how can you not like a show that's called Boss Up, Goddess, right? And I always do that. Every time I say the title, I go, I was on Boss Up, Goddess. I can't say it without doing that. But you've got a lot of shows on books. You've got the podcast. I'm going to go back a few years first. How did you end up writing a book with Billy D. Williams? Like, how did that even happen? Right? That was your third novel too. That was your third novel, which are they're mystery thrillers, but with multiracial characters. How did that happen? There you go. All right.
Yeah. So I always say God is my agent. I had a literary agent. God always makes amazing things happen in my life out of the blue. So my agent called. She said, Billy D. Williams wants to write a love story, and he's obviously the icon of romance. So are you interested? And I'm like, I'm on the plane to LA to meet him. And it was amazing. We met at
Wow.
this Italian restaurant, and there was like music, and oh my gosh, it was amazing. So we connected, wanted to write a story about multicultural, multiracial harmony. And so we wanted the book to be set in Brazil and Los Angeles, and it explores race from a very—
So it's actually in Brazil. Oh, now I have to, because my husband's Brazilian. So eu falo
Yes.
português, like the
Yes.
whole, yeah.
I love that. I love that. But he saw Brazil as like sort of this mecca, cornucopia of beauty and humanity of all different races and all different appearances and cultures and religions. So yeah, it's on the mission. Everything I write has a mission of what my parents instilled in us of racial unity, human harmony, seeing beyond, and knowing, here's the thing, as a spiritual person, our spirits have no color. They have no race. They have no national origin. They have no religion. It's pure energy, and that energy is love. And when we can recognize that energy in each other and look past all the—
I love it. And
increasing
like sort of energy to energy.
Yes, that's the key to human harmony and world peace.
And you do that. So talk about your publishing company. The two of you publish together. You've published a lot of stories of other people. There's ghost writing. What all are you doing with the publishing company to kind of put forth this mission that you just said?
Catherine, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, so I'm a short story writer as well. And when we started our business 5 years ago, I thought, I really want to support other short story writers. So we started holding monthly short story themed contests. Like 1 month we'd have magical realism, 1 month we'd have romance. And we've published, we're on our 4th anthology. And I mean, it's amazing. These are amazing. Well, this year we decided not to have short story contests, but to publish an anthology of diverse voices. So here we have on our website, twosisterswriting.com, we have calls for submissions every month. Obviously in February, it was Black History Month. So we had a call for African-American writers to tell their stories, whether in whatever form, poetry.
And is it so it's no specific topic, it's actually the identity of the person writing.
Yep. We said the way we announce it is your voice, your diverse voice matters, and we want to be your megaphone. So this month it's Indigenous people and people of color. In June it'll be LGBTQT, and then we did older adults, so people over 60. We wanted to hear their stories, and again we're going to publish an anthology of all of the chosen.
Are these actually physical books that are published, or these are online?
Oh no, they're ebooks, and then there's a physical book as well that we publish. And each author, it's so fun because when we email people and say your story won, they'll be like, "This is the first time ever. This is amazing," and then they get a physical copy of the anthology with their story in it.
Where does, I have to ask? Look, I'm already even blushing just saying the word erotica out loud. Where does, I know, I'm so immature. Where does, because I saw that you guys also do erotica. Where does that fit into your, or is that just like a side thing?
So that's one in our themed anthology.
And how does your mom feel about that? All right, wait, keep your hands up. Go ahead, Catherine, tell us.
Oh, I was going to say, in our monthly themed short story contest, we've had a monthly erotic. Have been the most popular of all of our contests. So the other thing we decided this year is let's just do an erotica anthology. But and I'll let Elizabeth talk more because erotica is like her passion, but it's because it's really about quality of writing. These are not smutty stories. This is like, you better know your grammar, you better know your structure, and okay, make it erotica. Then you can share, then we'll read it.
Yes, yes. Thank you,
Oh.
Catherine. So, yeah, I feel shy talking about it in front of my mother, but I wrote an erotic trilogy called Husbands Incorporated, which is published under my pen name, Sasha Maxwell. And I've always been fascinated about how to describe the feelings of love, passion, and pleasure. And people have told me that in this book and my others, and this even erotica, they read my love scenes as foreplay to each other. So anyway, yeah. So I I love describing the magic that happens between two people, but it's not about a tangle of limbs. It's about the emotional and spiritual connection that people have, and it's so beautiful. It's the act of creation. That's why we're here. So I love judging our stories because these writers come up with like the most interesting angles and twists and turns and perspectives. It's an absolute delight to celebrate. And again, as Catherine said, this is some exquisite writing.
What's funny is you use the exact same words to describe how you actually used the same words when you were describing like how are we all going to evolve as humans, because you were talking about connecting, sort of, because you said, look at your face, you're going, I did not. You said like the idea of connecting spiritually, heart to heart, like how do we connect as beings, which is also what you had talked about. So we only have a few more minutes. So if anyone has questions, now's your time to get them. Or if you will still want to come in and say hello. So MK says conversation so much fun. Thank you for sharing. Laurel, love this. Thank you so much for everyone for the love. So there's two more things I want to do. I do want you to talk about your you've got all the autobiographies that you've done, the stories that you've done of other people. And then I do want to ask each of you what the spark is inside of you that kind of gets you go, what I mean, that kind of drives everything that you do. So why don't we start? Can you just give me a quick, I don't know if that's Catherine or Elizabeth, but your diversity authors and your diversity speakers, like what are just a sampling of some of the stories of books that you're sharing?
Well, starting with our mother, she's a commencement speaker and an amazing speaker. So we have a diversespeakers.net. We have a website being developed for our Speakers Bureau for our authors. And we have former Detroit Mayor Dennis Archer. We have the first Black president of the American Red Cross. We have 5 women who shattered the black and glass ceiling in the energy industry as executives. And the list goes on. So our mission is to showcase these diverse voices on the pages of books. And now as speakers, we have a doctor who dropped dead at age 31 and lived to write a book about it and is all helping people on a movement for kindness. So it's all good. It's all inspiration.
So Laurel wants to know, have the three of you always been close? I feel like there's a real model here on mother-daughter relationships for sure, or perhaps each offer insight as to why you're so obviously connected.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's that childhood, like, I think we just grew up in a super loving, harmonious, caring, affectionate family. And that just carried, like, I feel like that's the basis of why we're all so close. I mean, and connected. And I also think when my father died, I was 22, Elizabeth was 23. Our mother was only 44, which is incredibly young to be a widow. But I think that his death solidified us as one unit. Because it was, the three of us. I don't know if we ever talked about that, but I feel like that was a spoken event. And I mean, I've lived on the West Coast since my mid-20s. So it's like, there's no distance at all. We're just connected.
Right.
I wonder too, from Marylin, from the book, you were very candid when you talked about sharing the good and the bad. You were very candid about your relationship with your own mother, which was very difficult. And so I wonder too, how did that influence how you decided to raise your girls?
Oh, I always said that my mother taught me how not to be a parent. My father taught me how to be a parent. My adoptive father, was very kind, very gentle, very loving. And I have in my book that at night when I was about to go to bed and I would go to kiss my mother on the cheek, she would ask me all these questions about, did I practice the piano enough? Did I study hard enough? Am I going to get on the honor roll this marking period? And when I would say yes to those questions, she would put her face over so I could give her a kiss. My dad, on the other hand, I said, "Good night, Daddy," and I kissed him on the cheek, and he said, "Good night, baby." So my father taught me how to be gentle and kind. And my mother said to me one time, you never beat your kids." I said, "I don't have to. I talk to them. You should have tried it." But yeah, she taught me what not to do as a parent. I did everything the opposite, except to instill in them the importance of education, the importance of being good role models, and the importance of always having a goal. I got that from her, but in terms of how to be a loving parent, no.
Can I
Yeah, please.
contribute to that question as well?
Absolutely.
About the closeness of the two of us. I just want this to be an example to working mothers, especially when we were in school, young kids. Our mother went to law school at night. She worked all day during the day, law school at night, studied on the weekend. So we did not get to see her a lot. However, the time that she did spend with us was beautiful and quality. And that's where the word CAP comes from, because Saturday night we would have a ritual for our family, giant bowl of popcorn, watch TV, The Love Boat, Captain Stubing. We're like, our mother's like the captain of our family ship. She's the boss. So we started calling her Captain, and that evolved into Cap. And our father was like Mr. Mom. He worked full time. He cooked dinner. He took us to piano lessons, ice skating, swimming, camping on the weekends so she could study and pass the bar on the first time around. So the message is teamwork makes the dream work. And secondly, that if you're working parents, you're super busy, make sure that time you do spend with your kids is super fun, high quality, not work related, just enjoying your. She took a day off and went on my field trip to Greenfield Village and like made me a dress so I could look like the 1800 schoolgirl. I mean, little moments like that are some of the best of my childhood memories. So it's not quality, it's quantity.
I know it's quality, not quantity.
Sorry. It's not quantity, it's quality. Time that matters most. Quality.
So we are at the time of the show. So Intercultural Spark, the idea comes from that each of us has a spark inside of us, and everyone has it, a spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world or within your sphere of influence. So I'll start with Marylin. What do you think that spark is inside you that's consistent and drives all that you bring to the world?
It is everything that I have been through in my life, and looking out at the world and seeing the way it is now. If there's any possible way that I can change anybody or change a situation, I will do that. So the spark really is my own, the biracial, aspect of my life, and everything I've been through. That's my spark. And my children, I have to say, and my children. I want everybody to understand that you can be close, that you can be successful, that you can be a parent, but you can also be friends with your children. And my daughters are my friends too. So, they'll check me when I need checking, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Catherine, what's your spark?
I think my spark it's really about helping people, helping them see. I'm really big on independence. Probably that's why I've lived on the West Coast my whole adult life, and my family's in Michigan. You can be independent and you can also be connected. So for me, it's all about being connected and being independent, and helping people get to a comfortable place of being independent yet connected.
That actually, especially in U.S. American society, is so hard because we just value that independence. I don't need anybody. And so you're right. Allowing that need of others is really beautiful. So Elizabeth, what about you?
Well, my spark was lit by my parents' courage and bravery and commitment to being loving beings for all. So I continue to glow with that spark, but it's also to light that light in others by serving as an example of someone who has overcome certain challenges and being an advocate for women's empowerment and empowerment for all people. So my spark is to spark out and spark it in other people to make them glow with their purpose and passion in life.
I love it. Fuel to the fire, right? Thank you all so much for being here today and for sharing so much. And I love it. I think it was Laura, a couple people said, it's just so much fun to watch the three of you as mom, daughter, sisters, just that interaction. You're so powerful together, but also, you know, equally powerful independently with what you bring to the world. Thank you all so much for being here. And I look forward to staying connected in real life. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.